All right, welcome back to Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. We are looking at our previews and predictions and see if we can at least stay close to Preston's picks in our own predictions. I'm always curious to look back and see if Adam and Preston disagree on some of their picks, but we are going to start before we get there with a look at our feature game of the week, the Del Bianco Bowl in Calgary. It is the Vancouver Warriors, where it's been pretty clear Christian Del Bianco would like to go at the Calgary Roughnecks, who hold his rights and have him sitting on the holdout list right now. And my proposal for this game is we all want to see Christian Del Bianco playing, right? Mm-hmm. We know the route to that is a trade to Vancouver. I propose that we make it high stakes, and each team puts a trade offer on the table, and whichever team wins, their offer goes into effect. And I've worked out the offers. You want to hear what I think?
Oh, please. Yeah.
Okay. So Calgary proposes that they get Connor O'Toole, Owen Grant, Braden Laity, Adam Charlambides, Ryan Martell, Keegan Ball, Jonathan Peshko, and first-round picks in 2026 and 2027. Pretty solid trade, right?
That is a lot.
Right? Vancouver.
Yeah.
It has to be somebody who's on their roster. They propose that Calgary get the rights to Chris Willman, who is currently on their holdout list. Okay. Let's go to extremes. Yeah. I know it's not going to happen, but it's fun to think about. But, as we go into this, obviously Del Bianco is a big story, but both teams are going to be focused on who they have playing and what's going on. What do we see in this game coming at them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to be very interesting. First of all, really excited to see what Jonathan Peshko did when he was out on the floor the last game. My family, I don't know if you know this, Stamper, but is a Hopkins family through and through. My grandfather was actually the captain of the Blue Jays back in 1936. So, Dad still works with Hopkins, so we're still a Baltimore family through and through on the dad's side. But yeah, so great to see Peshko. Also found out before the season, I was looking it up, he was the first Hopkins Blue Jay to go in the top 5 in the NLL entry draft since Holden Katoni. So yeah,
Holden went 5th to Calgary, right?
Yep. Yeah. So not a lot of Blue Jays going in the top 5 in the last 10 years. But yeah, cool for Peshko to do that. It's been great seeing Alex Stotkis. How do you pronounce Stotkis? I pronounce it Stotkis. Stothicus. Okay.
I think I'm still working on that one.
Yeah. He's been pretty solid at the faceoff dot. Got to say that it's been impressive. Thank you. Yeah. And so it's been good to see that improvement. And you're seeing their young guys really improve. And I have to say, Aiden Walsh really had a great performance the last game too. And he is in a really tough spot. It's hard to not talk about him with all the Del Bianco potential news. And look, it's going to happen at some point. I think Vancouver is way more eager to have it happen sooner rather than later compared to Calgary is. And then, from Calgary's perspective, it's almost kind of it doesn't help situations that the fact that Dane Doby has decided to turn back the clock 10 years and be an MVP candidate. And now they're 2-0. But also let's and I said this in regards to people talking about Rylan Hartley and Riley Hutchcraft and kind of all these backup goalies that are having these opportunities. I know that people want a starter and people want to have who they want in net for their teams. But the reality is that's out of our control. That's out of anything else. And I think out of fairness to the guys that are in between the pipes right now, we got to give them a chance until they prove that they are or aren't the guy. We got to say, okay, if Cam McLeod or Colby Bowman's who we're going to go with, we got to get behind them while we still can.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. It is tough when you have young goaltenders. It's like young quarterbacks. I'm going to make an NFL reference and look at Sam Darnold. Look at the season he's having in Minnesota. They're 12-2, 13-2. Awesome season for the Vikings. Sam Darnold has been one of the best players in the National Football League, and he was written off. People are like, "Oh, he's terrible. Why did they draft him so high?" They drafted him so high because he was a great athlete, a great player, and we're seeing now that. Excuse me. Hopefully we can cut that out. We're seeing that it was the New York Jets were the issue, and it just took him a while. But you have to have, you see other players who develop, and I'm thinking a guy Holden Katoni. is a good example of a guy who, it took him a little bit to get going. Riley O'Connor in Calgary as well took a while to get going. Not to pick on Calgary, because that's just, they were good players, but they've developed guys as well. I mean, you see Hayden Dixon come along. It took him a while. He stayed there. I think goalies take longer. Well, obviously, we all think goalies take longer to develop. So you've got young goalies. It's going to be tough. Chris Origlieri was fantastic last year, and he is in a bit of a tough stretch right now. It takes a while. Is Aiden Walsh going to be consistent every week? No, he's a young goalie. It's just not reasonable to expect. Christian Del Bianco wasn't consistent every week as a 19, 20, 21. Well, he didn't start till he was 21, but I mean, it's a big challenge, and it's hard, and there's not enough goalies, and that's the thing with goalies developing slowly. You don't suddenly have a wave of great, consistent franchise goalies available.
I think you're totally right. And I think that, one of the things, and we did start to see it, just switching off to goalies for a sec for the Warriors, you look at a guy like Adam Charlambides and Keegan Ball. Keegan Ball had a slow couple games out the start there. He had a nice one the last time out. So I think it's going to be good. But you're totally right in the goaltending situation that, it does take time. There are not a lot of guys who are the elite people that we expect them to be right out of the start. But I think that it'll be a test for Calgary's goaltenders. And, I think it's great for all of them to be getting these reps now, because they are the guys. And, as I said earlier with Aiden Walsh and his, predicament, knowing that he's not going to be the guy for however long that is, I think he's playing loose. He's playing like, hey, I can, kind of go out there and feel like there's no pressure on me, because he kind of, I guess, knows what's coming down the corner.
I've got one more example before we go on to the picks, just to think about as a young goalie. When Christian Del Bianco made his first start in the National Lacrosse League, it was because Frank Chiliano in Calgary had been suspended for an incident in a preseason game against Saskatchewan, right? They got a little tilly going, and Chiliano's out. Del Bianco starts and gets absolutely lit up. And then Zach Higgins, their third string goalie, was the backup for that game. He comes in, had an awesome game, and wound up actually, if you look at all the goalies, not just guys who played enough minutes to qualify for the title, but he had the best save percentage among all goalies who played in the NLL that year. Of course, he moved on and now is with Ottawa. He's bounced around a bit, but he also, the next day, after that game, he got on a red eye, flew back to Ontario, and the next night started for the Oshawa Outlaws in their season opener for the Arena Lacrosse League, and was fantastic. So, I don't know. That's just I think, an interesting story, because I remember being in Oshawa for that game and thinking, how are you doing this when you flew across the country?
Yeah, hang on one second, guys. Those nuggets are amazing. We're at 8 minutes, so if you want to just do like another half a minute on this, and we'll make the picks a separate thing, and then we'll go from that. But because we're already at 8, it'll be 9 now by the time I'm done talking almost.
Okay.
I think you're totally right, Stamper. When it comes to players getting opportunities, the amount of guys who say, if it weren't for this injury that happened to another guy, if it weren't for this situation, and sometimes that's all it takes. But you got to be ready. That's why these practice roster guys, all these guys who can be around the team, they got to be ready to go when the time comes. And some guys do it better than others, and I think that's what's most important.
Great point. And I mean, heading way east from this preview matchup and looking at Josh Dahlwick in Toronto, is the leading scorer for the Rock because Tom Schreiber is out. So lots of things. With that, I think we'll wrap up our preview of this week. So much going on in this Christmas week at ITWOBL and in the National Lacrosse League. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with Inside the World of Box Lacrosse, where we actually make our picks and see how we're doing so far and how we're going to do next week.
All right, real quick, one question for you before we end this segment. Aiden Walsh, over 80% save percentage for the rest of the year. He's at like 82 now or 83. Do we think he'll be over 80 or under 80 for the season?
Under.
Yeah.
I think it'll be maybe 78, best 79. Cracking 80% is tough in the National Lacrosse League.
Yeah, it doesn't happen that often. I think it'll be hard, but I don't think it'll be too far off it, but under.